Hi, good afternoon. Now we're going to look at session 4 on developing a negotiating style. Now, this is quite a big topic. We're going to introduce a lot of new theories. Now, why are we developing a negotiating style? Is because all of us are unique individuals. Okay, we have different personality. We have different life experiences. We have different family upbringing. That means we have different values, different beliefs. So there is no one size fits all approach when it comes to negotiating. That is why we are developing a negotiating style that is suitable for ourselves. Now, of course, this is a lecture. I won't have time for you to do any form of work. But during the tutorial, I will be asking you to do a few personality tests. Okay. And with that personality test, you'll be able to look at what style suits you. Now, when we look at negotiating style, naturally we will have to bring in theories on personality as well as emotions. Now, negotiation can be a very emotional experience, how we manage emotions, that we're going to look at our personality, we're going to look at emotions. And when we look at such theories, we'll definitely need to bring in literature from social psychology. Now, I know all of you are business students. You probably have little or no exposure to any form of social psychology. Okay, however, there is nothing to worry because whatever we are doing today is fundamental. You do not need to have any prior knowledge on social psychology. All right. So this is session 4 on developing a negotiating style. Learning outcome, as I mentioned to you, there's a number of theories in this topic. We're going to look at negotiating temperaments. Okay, we're going to look at another model called the circumflex of social motivation model. There are 8 motivational orientation altogether. We're going to develop strategies for overly cooperative negotiators as well as overly competitive negotiators. We're going to look at some of the issues concerning a person's motivational style. We're going to look at disputes, how negotiators handle disputes, how emotions can affect the outcome of negotiation. We're going to look at emotional intelligence, EQ. Okay, we're going to look at strategies for dealing with emotions at the bargaining table. And finally, we are going to look at the 12 non-verbal cues that can affect negotiation. So a lot of theories in this topic. First of all, this is a theory that we borrow from social psychology. So this is about negotiating temperament. So at the top and bottom right hand corner, we have the blue boxes, the judges, and the opposite of the judges, we have the perceivers. On my left and on my right, we have the sensors and the intuitors. Now, in between those blue boxes, we have the red boxes. So we can see that controllers have a combination of judging and intuition. Harmonizers have a combination of intuition and perceiving. Action seekers have a combination of sensing and perceiving, and pragmatists have a combination of judging and sensing. So, what do I mean by that? Okay, so the judges, they tend to review their positions, they prefer things to be done in an orderly manner, they are very systematic in their approach, and they anticipate deadlines and they want closure for whatever issues they are dealing with. Okay, and you can see that the opposite of judges, we have the perceivers. But perceivers, okay, you can see that they're opposite in what ways? Okay, they tend to defer, they're more very flexible in their approach. They are not bothered by deadlines. Okay, they don't want to be constrained by deadlines. And we have the sensors and the intuitors. So the sensors prefers details and things to be very precise, whereas the intuitors prefer things to be more abstract and more general. Okay. And over here, we have the 4 red boxes, whereby the harmonizers, they are also known as the pacifiers. They have the intuitive perceiving combination. Some of the key characteristics of this group of people, they look at things from a broad perspective. They like to conceptualize theories. They like to discuss multiple issues simultaneously, and they also resist deadlines as well as pressure. Now, the controllers, they are known as the boosts. they have the intuitive judging combination, they're firm, they're decisive, okay? To look at this from a broad perspective, they like to conceptualize theories, they also like to discuss multiple issues. The pragmatists, they are known as the street fighters, they have the sensing judging combination, they prefer things to be done in a detailed, orderly manner, okay, are firm, they're decisive, but they are also impatient for resolution. And action seekers, they are known as the high rollers. They have the sensing perceiving combination. They focus on details and sequence, but at the same time, they are also very spontaneous and flexible. Okay, so these are the various negotiating temperaments. Now we are going to look at this model called the circumplex of social motivation model. So at the top, right at the top there, we have concern for others. That means people who have a high concern for others, we call them people who are very altruistic, okay, or altruism, right on top there. So at the opposite of altruism, we have aggression, people who are out to harm others, people who are aggressive. Now, on my right hand side, I have individualism. That means a person with high concern for themselves. And the opposite of individualism is masochism. People with extremely low concern for themselves to the extent that they want to harm themselves. Okay, so let us look at this circumplex of social motivation model in greater detail. So altruism, people with high concern for others. So some time ago, I read this newspaper article about this elderly man. He has been donating blood for the past few decades. 20 for the past 20, 30 years. And in order to donate blood regularly, he has been eating healthily. He has been exercising on a daily basis just so that he can donate blood regularly. And he said that his blood has saved more than 600 people. Okay, so we can see that this is an example of somebody who is very altruistic. Why go through the hassle? Why go through the pain and the discomfort of donating your blood? Okay, and having to keep to a very healthy and clean diet, having to exercise regularly. But this is something that he wants to do. Okay, he wants to save people, and he was so proud that his blood has saved more than 600 lives. People who are very altruistic. The opposite of altruism, we have aggression. People who are out to harm other people. Random act of terror. We have read this in the newspapers for the past few months. There are so many incidents whereby there are random act of terror. Aggressive towards strangers, aggressive towards acquaintances. There are so many incidents, not only in Singapore, but also in other parts of the world. Okay, on my right hand side, we have individualism, okay, whereby you protect your own interests, okay, and the opposite of individualism, we have masochism, the desire to harm yourselves. Now, this is different from a person with depression. We're not talking about people with mental illness. Okay, masochism, some researcher claim that okay, people who are masochistic can be a form of mental illness whereby they seek pleasure in harming themselves. Okay, they seek pleasure in being humiliated by others. Okay, it can be a form of mental illness, but this is different from a person with depression, whereby sometimes people with depression they harm themselves. It's different from that. Okay, so don't get this mixed up. Masochism is not the same as depression. All right. And of course, our focus is on the three that are highlighted in red: individualism, cooperation, as well as competition. In fact, all of us are able to identify ourselves as one of these three. And during the tutorial, I'll be asking you to do a self-administered questionnaire whereby you will know if you are somebody who is cooperative, somebody who is individualistic, or somebody who is competitive. Okay, but we will only do that during tutorial because this is lecture and we don't have the time to do that. All right, so characteristics of these three groups of people. Okay, individualistic negotiators, people who seek their own gain, they have a lack of concern for others and is uninterested in how much the other party is getting. In other words, if the other party is getting a lot, they are not jealous. If the other party is getting very little, they are also not sympathetic. Basically, they don't care how much the other party is getting. They only care how much they themselves are getting. They are not interested in comparing themselves with others. They are not jealous of others. They are not sympathetic if the other party is getting very little. They just take care of themselves. Okay, individualistic negotiator. Now, competitive negotiator, their main aim is to beat the other party. When I use the word beat, I don't mean you physically go and hit somebody. The word beat here means you want to win the other party and you try to maximize profit between yourself and the other party. That is the main aim of a competitive negotiator. Okay, they just want to win the other party. They are always comparing themselves with the person beside them. They want to win that person. Now, cooperative negotiator seeks equality, is concerned for the other party, and they want to build joint interests with the other party. So all of us is able to identify with one of these three types of negotiation. Okay, and we are going to discover more about ourselves during the tutorial. Now, 7 strategies for overly cooperative negotiators. There's nothing wrong with being cooperative. In fact, it is good to be cooperative. However, it becomes a problem if you are overly cooperative. You're too nice to the other person already. So when you are overly cooperative, it becomes a disadvantage for yourself. And we have 7 strategies for overly cooperative negotiators. Number 1, avoid concentrating too much on your bottom line. You should try to spend extra time preparing your goals and developing high aspiration. Now, cooperative negotiators, sometimes they don't mind sacrificing themselves for the benefit of the other party. It's okay, let the other person win, it's all right. Okay, however, okay, it is not to your advantage if you're always so nice and give in to the other party. So you should be spending more time preparing your goals, having high aspirations, set a high target for yourself. Don't think of giving in to the other person all the time. Develop your backna. Have plan B, have plan C, have plan D. Be comfortable and be confident to walk away if this particular negotiation is not able to give you a good deal. Just walk away. All right. Because you have plan B, you have plan C. There is nothing to worry about. Number 3, get an agent and dedicate the negotiation task. If you feel that you are too nice, you give in too easily, there is nothing wrong with getting somebody to help you with the negotiation. Maybe your parents, maybe your best friend, okay? Somebody who is more assertive, who can help you with the negotiation. Maybe this is just a personality. You tend to give in, you tend to please people all the time. You just want to please others, okay? If you know that this is a problem, there is nothing wrong with getting others to do the negotiation together with you so that they can be more assertive to help you demand for what you deserve. Number 4, bargain on behalf of someone, not yourself. You may be thinking, it's so ironic, you can't even negotiate on behalf of yourself. Why are you doing that for others? Now, think about it. If you're negotiating on behalf of your parents, on behalf of your best friend, naturally you want them to get the best deal because these are the important people in your lives, okay? Naturally, without a doubt, you will learn to be a bit more assertive. It is very natural because you want to protect your loved ones. You want to protect your family. You want to protect your friends. You want to protect your relatives. Naturally, you will be more assertive because you want to get a good deal for them. You don't mind sacrificing for yourself, but your loved ones, you want to get a good deal for them. Create an audience. Sometimes people learn to be more assertive if they know that others are watching them. Okay, so create an audience. Get people to observe the way you negotiate. All right. And naturally, you would try to do a good job knowing that others is there watching you and giving you feedback. Number 6, okay, don't say yes all the time. Don't smile at the other party all the time. Don't nod your head all the time. Your body language is very important. Okay. Rehearse not saying yes, not smiling, not nodding your head, not bowing. Don't do any of these things. Okay. It shows your willingness to give in to the other party. And when the other party observes such body language, they know that they can push for more because you seems like an easy target to them. Number 7, insist on commitments, not just agreement. Now, cooperative negotiators tends to be very trusting. Okay, I am very trusting and They thought that others are just like them, but in reality, no. Sometimes people do take advantage of you, especially when you are so cooperative, so trusting. They do take advantage of you. Okay, so insist on commitments and specific promises. Okay, from the other party, and there will be consequences if those promises are not followed. Okay, so this is a reminder for overly cooperative negotiators. There is no need for you to be so nice, to give in to the demands of the other party. No, observe your body language. All right, and insist on what you deserve to get. Now, what about overly competitive negotiators? It is good to be competitive. It becomes a problem if you are overly competitive. Now, what is the key characteristics of a competitive negotiators? They just want to beat the other person. They just want to win the other person. Sometimes they lose sight of what is important to them. Okay, so think about pie expansion, not just pie slicing. So what you can do is to bring in additional issues, bring in additional people into negotiation, expand the pie, not just dividing the fixed pie that you already have. Ask more questions than you think you should. Have a genuine interest in the other person's preferences, needs, and want. It is not just about what you want in a negotiation. Now, to derive at a win-win outcome, it has to be mutual. Okay, you have to meet the demands of the other party as well. Rely on standards. Okay, people respond well to arguments that are based on standards of fairness. Be fair to the other party. Number four, hire a relationship manager. Doesn't mean that you pay people to negotiate on behalf of you. What you can do is to get your family, your parents, your best friends, your sisters, your siblings, etc., to help you manage the people side of negotiation. Maybe you feel a bit awkward to talk to strangers or acquaintances. Okay, get people who can connect easily with others, people who can start or initiate a conversation easily, people who can connect with others easily. Get them to help you manage the people side of negotiation. Number five, be reliable. Keep your words. Sometimes overly competitive negotiators, okay, they don't keep their words. Okay, they just want to win. They don't keep their words. But build your reputation. Okay, be somebody who is reliable and trustworthy. Number six, do not haggle when you can negotiate. There is no need for you to haggle over every single issues. It is not a contest of wills on every little issue. Think of the big picture. Okay, you can win on the important issues and let go of those insignificant issues. Let the other party wins. Okay, but only let them wins on issues that are insignificant to yourself. Pick your battle. All right, and finally, okay, be respectful to the other party. Sometimes overly competitive negotiators, they are loud, they can be aggressive, they can be rude, okay? But it is important to show respect to the other party as well, okay? So these are the 7 strategies for overly competitive negotiators. Now, why is it that we don't have strategies for individualistic negotiators? Because basically, individualistic negotiators, they take care of their own needs and their own interests. They have very little concern for others. Okay, they don't care how much the person is getting. They are not jealous of the other person. Neither are they sympathetic towards the other person. Okay, that is why there is no need for you to have strategies for overly individualistic people. They are already doing fine in the negotiation. Now, after knowing what type of negotiators you are, whether you're somebody who is individualistic, somebody who is competitive, or somebody who is cooperative, okay, what is it going to do to your negotiation? Now, the myth of the hard bargainer. If somebody is perceived as being difficult, a hard negotiator, irritating, stubborn, unethical, you realize that effectiveness level will drop. Okay, now when both negotiators are cooperative, there is a tendency to arrive at a win-win outcome. Okay, because both parties are motivated, okay, to build joint gains to benefit each other. All right. Now, do not lose sight of your own interest. Now, individualistic negotiators do not have to worry about this possibility because they are always protecting their own interests. But cooperative and competitive negotiators, they will have to worry about this possibility. Now, sometimes two overly cooperative negotiators may end up with a lose-lose agreement because they don't make their interests known to the other party. Whereas competitive negotiators, they are so intent on winning or beating the other party that sometimes they don't pay attention to their own interests. They just want to win the other party. So in a sense, they win the battle, but they lose the war. Okay, a very profound term. They win the battle, but they lose the war. So it is very important to have a high level of concern for your own interest, but also show a similar interest for the other party. Social comparison. We discussed this during session 2 on social comparison. So often we compare how much we are getting in relation to the other person. So we know that, okay, your relationship with the other person is really important. If the other person is your loved ones, okay, you probably don't mind them having a good deal. Okay. However, if the person that you are negotiating with is somebody whom you dislike, so naturally you will want to demand for more in this negotiation. Our relationship with the other party is going to have an impact in whether we are going to be more cooperative towards them or more competitive towards them. It's going to have an impact on our motivational orientation. Now, use the principle of reinforcement to shape behavior. Okay, we can use both positive and negative reinforcement to shape the behavior of the other party. So, example of positive reinforcement, we look interested, we nod our head, we smile at them. Okay, example of negative reinforcement, we look bored, we look disinterested, maybe we yawn, maybe we start looking at our social media. Okay, these are examples of negative reinforcement. How can we encourage the other party's behavior? Is to reinforce the behavior positively immediately after it occurs. Okay, so it is like when you train your child. Okay, maybe you have younger nieces or nephew. When you praise them, they are happy. They want to replicate the positive behavior because you praise them. They know that this is something that you desire. They try to replicate that positive behavior. Okay, and how can we discourage the other party's behavior? Simply not respond to them. We don't have to argue. We don't have to scream back at them. We simply not respond to them. They will get the message and they will drop that bad behavior. Now, the power of reciprocity, okay, whereby we tend to reciprocate the behavior of others. Now, if I come into this lecture theater, I start smiling at you and greet you good afternoon. Your reaction will probably be positive. You'll probably smile back at me and say something nice. If I were to start coming into this lecture theater and start screaming at you, throwing things at you, you are going to think that I'm crazy and shout back at me. Okay, because people tend to reciprocate the behavior of the other party. So if you give people the impression that you are very tough, very aggressive, very loud, people are going to react according to your behavior. Because if you are so competitive towards them and they remain cooperative, there is no way they can win this negotiation. Okay, they will have to react and be competitive back towards you. Okay, so this is how we reciprocate each other's behavior. The next one, anticipate motivational crashes at the bargaining table. So what happens if I come into this negotiation as somebody who is cooperative, but you are so aggressive towards me, you're so competitive towards me, I will have to modify myself. I will have to change my tactics. I will have to change my strategies because I know that I'm going to lose in this negotiation. So it is not just important for you to know your own motivational orientation. It is also important for you to know the motivational orientation of the other person. Now, when you come to the bargaining table, look at their behavior. The first few minutes of the negotiation, you are able to see what type of negotiators they are and whether they are going to be difficult towards you. The first few minutes you will see already. Okay, and you will have to adjust, have to adapt, and maybe modify your strategies accordingly. Now, motivational convergence, okay, your your motivational orientation, okay, often change. Your strategies often change depends on how you view the other person as well as the situation that you are in. So be adaptable, okay? Even though after doing the self-administered questionnaire, you know what type of negotiators you are, okay? But okay, you have to be adaptable, react to the other person, react to the situation. And epistemic motivation, it is about a person's understanding of the world that he is living in. All right. So if you are high in epistemic, you're more likely to reach a more integrative agreement as compared to people who are low in epistemic motivation. So you tend to be confident of the environment. You tend to be aware of what is happening in the world that you are living in. You are confident, you are comfortable. You tend to reach a more integrative agreement as compared to people who are low in epistemic motivation. Now, let us look at disputes. There is nothing unusual about disputes and conflicts in a negotiation. In fact, it is so common. All right. And people often fear negotiation because they don't like conflicts, they don't like arguments, they don't like disagreement. That is why people fear to negotiate. They think it's awkward to negotiate with others. Now, what is important is not about fearing negotiation, but how do you deal in such circumstances? Okay, so there are three types of negotiators: interest-based negotiators. Interest-based negotiators will focus on the issues, okay, and they will try to address each party's most pressing needs and concern. Let's put aside our emotions. Let's put aside our disagreement. Let's discuss each other's most pressing issues, most pressing concerns. Let us deal with those problems. Okay, put aside our negative feelings towards each other. Let us just deal with the problem. So this is interest-based negotiators. Now, rights-based negotiators will apply standards of fairness to negotiation. They will use their legal rights. They will use their contracts, etc. Okay, to enforce or to pressurize the other person by using their legal rights, contracts, etc., on the other person. Okay, so this brings us to this theory called adjudication, whereby sometimes negotiators are unable to resolve whatever conflicts or tension that they have, and they invite a neutral third party with the power to hand down a binding decision. So, for example, the employer and the union, there is a dispute. Okay, the union is there on behalf of the employees to help them fight for better terms and conditions of employment. Now, if there is a dispute, they can invite the Ministry of Manpower as a mediator, and this ministry has the authority to hand down a binding decision. Okay, and finally, we have power-based negotiators, whereby they will use their status, their rank, to threaten and to intimidate the other party. So the three types of negotiators in terms of handling disputes and tension, we have interest-based negotiators, rights-based negotiators, as well as power-based negotiators. Now, a table that shows you the key differences between interest-based, rights-based, as well as power-based negotiation. Okay, so as we have looked at, interest-based negotiators will focus on what is important. Okay, they focus on the present. What needs and interests do we have right now? All right. Rights-based negotiators, they focus on the past. Okay, what is stated in our contract? What is the legal rights that we have? Okay, so what has been dictated by the past? And power-based negotiators will look at the future. Okay, what steps can I take in the future to overpower others? Okay, now in terms of implication for future negotiations and relationship, for interest-based negotiators, they tend to be greater understanding and satisfaction. There is stability in reaching an agreement. For rights-based negotiator, a possible court action, okay, because you're going to enforce your legal rights on the other person. And power-based negotiators, it may read the resentment if you use your power, your status to intimidate or to threaten the other person. Okay, it can lead to resentment or possible retaliation or even revenge. Now, we cannot totally exclude emotions because emotions can run high in a negotiation. So we're going to look at emotions right now, positive versus negative emotions. So you can see there's so many subcategories of positive emotions. We have love and joy. Categories of negative emotions, we have anger, sadness, and fear. There's so many others, positive and negative emotions that follows after that. Okay, so the two types of emotions, positive emotions, we have love, joy, happiness. Negative emotions, sadness, fear, anxiety. We also have express versus felt emotions. So express emotions means you express the emotions that you truly feel. So when I'm happy, I laugh. I'm smiling, I'm laughing. Okay, or I suppress the emotions that I really feel. So maybe I'm feeling very angry, very frustrated, but I cannot show, okay, my anger. So I suppress my feelings. So let me just give you an example. Let's say you are a cabin crew or you are a frontline staff. Okay, you are expected to smile at your customers and your passengers for the entire duration of your work shift. Okay, so basically you have a long day, you're tired, but you still have to put on a smile all the time. All right, so sometimes you may be feeling frustrated, you may be feeling tired, you may be feeling angry, but you have to suppress all these negative emotions and still portray the emotions, the right emotions that your company or your organization expect you to do so. Okay, after working for 8 hours, it is a 10-hour shift, you still have to smile, you still have to look excited, you still have to look enthusiastic. All right, now we also have genuine versus strategic emotions. Genuine emotions means the real emotions that you feel, you express it out. So if I'm happy, I'm smiling, I'm laughing. Okay, now strategic emotions are not the real emotions, they are the fake emotions. They are there to take the other party off guard. Okay, so for example, in a negotiation, all right, I may deliberately show you that I'm frustrated with you. I bang the table. Okay, I started talking very loudly to you to show my frustration with the intention for you to, back off and give in to me. All right. So this is what we call strategic emotions, whereby it is not the real emotions. All right. Or poker face, not having any emotional expression at all. So I know many of you are underage, but if you have gone to a casino or you have seen people playing cards in shows, you can see that when you play cards, you actually show a poker face. You don't show any emotions. If you play cards and you start smiling, people know that you got good cards. Okay, and you're likely to win, and they react accordingly. So when you play cards, okay, you likely not show any emotions, poker face, because people are observing your facial language. Okay, are you smiling? Are you frowning? Just remain poker face. Don't give other people any idea what type of cards you receive. Okay, so your facial expression is really important. Now, the three emotional style, again, we will be doing a self-administered questionnaire. Rational style means a person seek to conceal or suppress emotions, especially negative emotions. Positive style means a person try to create positive emotions and commitment in either party. Negative style, whereby a person use irrational appealing emotions to intimidate and to control the other party. This brings us to this table, okay, whereby we show the key differences between rational, positive, as well as negative style. Now, for the rational style, you're not likely to say anything regrettable, but you may come across as somebody who is very distant. Okay, so you're very careful with your words, you're very careful with your behavior. You're not likely to say anything that you regret later. Okay, but it is very hard for people to understand you as a person. It is very hard for people to connect with you as a person. Okay. For positive style, definitely greater feelings of commitment to relationship partner. Okay. You try to build joint gains with the other person. and there is usually a positive outcome in this negotiation. Negative style, whereby there is a need for you to carry out your threats, okay, because you like to threaten people, you like to intimidate people. There is a pressure for you to carry out your threats, or you may lose your credibility. Okay, or what we call empty talks. Only dare to threaten people, but don't dare to take any action. So you are pressurized to, carry out your threats, or you may lose your credibility. Okay, that is emotional style. Now, let's move on to this theory called emotional intelligence. There are 5 dimensions in EQ: self-awareness, self-management, self-motivation. These 3 dimensions focus on your own emotions. Social skills and empathy focus on the emotions of the other party. Similarly, during the tutorial, I will be asking you to do a EQ self-administered questionnaire so that you know about your own EQ. Okay, so self-awareness is the ability to recognize and to understand your own emotions and how your emotions is going to affect other people. Okay, your mood, your actions, your emotions, how they are going to affect other people. Now, people with high self-awareness usually have a good sense of humor. They are confident in themselves as well as their abilities, and they are aware of how others perceive them. Okay, so a person who is high in self-awareness, they're able to monitor their own emotions, they're able to identify each emotions correctly. Okay, so these are people with high awareness. What about self-management? Self-management is also known as self-regulation. They're able to manage their own emotions. In other words, okay, they know when to release any negative feelings. Maybe at work, all right, for 8 hours, for 12 hours, you're not able to express your true emotions. So they're able to put the emotions on hold, okay, and find the right time and the right place to express their negativity. So maybe after working for 12 hours, they're very tired. They just want to go home for a nice meal, go and take a warm shower, listen to some loud music, or whatever ways they can release that negativity as well as their stress, as well as the tension. All right. So it is not about bottling up your emotions, like bottle up your emotions. Rather, they know when to control the emotions and then know when to let go of such negativity. Now, people with strong self management, they are also more conscientious, they are thoughtful, and they also take responsibilities for their actions. Now, self-motivation, okay, is beyond external rewards like fame, money, recognition, okay? They want to fulfill their inner needs and goals, okay? They tend to seek internal rewards. So, for example, okay, I want to run a marathon, okay? So this is uh internal motivation whereby they will work hard to achieve that, okay, and they are totally in tune with an activity and they want experiences, okay, so they are not so blinded by fame, recognition, money, etc. They want experiences, and they usually set high goals for themselves. There is a high need for achievement, and they are always looking for ways to outperform themselves. They're always looking for ways to do even better. In other words, they are very committed to what they are doing, and usually they have good initiatives. Okay, so these are people who are very self-motivated. They're able to pick themselves up even when they fall. Okay, they're able to pick themselves up and then find ways, okay, to build themselves and to be a better version of themselves. Now, empathy, this is where we focus on the emotions of the other person, the ability to understand how others are feeling, okay, not just understand how they are feeling, but also how you respond. Okay, when people talk to you about their problems, when people talk to you about their issues, how do you respond to them? Okay, that is empathy, able to feel what they are feeling and respond appropriately. Social skills, the ability to interact well with others. Okay, people with strong social skills are able to build meaningful relationship with other people. They are also good at listening. Okay, active listening, verbal communication, non-verbal communication, so their body language. People who display leadership, as well as people who are generally persuasive. So people with good social skills, okay, they have a natural tendency to want to connect with other people. They want to get to know people, not just locally, but also, you know, people from a different culture. They want to learn about them. They want to interact with them. They have good listening skills. They have good verbal communication skills. They have good non-verbal communication skills, etc. Okay, so people with good social skills. So these are the 5 dimensions of emotional intelligence. Again, during the tutorial, I will be asking you to do a self-administered questionnaire. Now, strategies for dealing with emotions at negotiation. Beware of what you are reinforcing. Now, people often give concessions or a discount just to shut the other person up. But this actually reinforce the behavior that you're trying to minimize or trying to extinguish. Let me just give you a very simple illustration. So, for example, you have a younger niece or nephew, or maybe you have a younger cousin, and you went to this toy shop, okay? Your niece demanded to have a $100 Lego. Well, for a student like you to purchase $100 Lego is really too much. Okay, you have to work many hours of part-time job at the bubble tea shop just to earn $100. Okay, you're not willing to spend $100 on a Lego toy. Okay, and when you decline, when you rejected, he starts behaving badly. Okay, roll on the floor, screaming, shouting, making a scene, and you feel a bit embarrassed. So what do? You're so a bit embarrassed. You quickly go and buy the toy. Okay, so if that is a reaction because your nephew or your niece or your cousin is rolling on the floor, throwing tantrums, crying and screaming in the retail shop, and you immediately went to buy the toy just to shut him up, okay, what is going to happen? He knows that by behaving badly, he is going to get what he wants. So in the future, when he wants a toy, he is going to do the same thing, knowing that if he behaves badly, you are going to get the toy for him. So similarly, okay, in negotiation, if you give a concession just to shut the other person up, the other person will know, oh, okay, by behaving badly, by demanding for more, I get what I want, I will continue to do that. Okay, so beware of what you are reinforcing. Okay, because you don't want that behavior to repeat continuously all the time. Okay, so if people behave irrationally, okay, and you agree to that whatever request that they have, you are actually reinforcing that negative behavior in others. Okay, you can expect them to behave in the same manner in the future. All right. Number 2, re-evaluation is more effective than suppression. People often try to suppress their emotions, especially negative emotions. However, suppression can backfire one day. You may just one day be unable to control, be unable to just keep on suppressing emotions. So what is more important is re-evaluation. Acknowledge the emotions that you are feeling, but how to release that negativity, how to deal with that particular emotions. So sometimes you can see that some people they harm themselves. Okay, I do know of people who harm themselves. That is because they have a lot of emotional pain, they have a lot of pain inside, but they don't know how to release that pain. So what happens? They harm themselves, they cut themselves because they are trying to transfer the emotional pain to physical pain, because physical pain they are able to feel and able to let go of that physical pain, but they're not able to let go of the emotional pain. All right, so suppressing your emotions sometimes, okay, can backfire. It is better for you to reevaluate emotions, talk to people, okay, talk to a professional, seek help, all right? Because, okay, you need to release all the negativity that you are experiencing and find a way to deal with it. Now, emotions are contagious. As I mentioned to you, When I come in and smile at you, you are likely going to reciprocate with a smile. If I come in and start screaming at you and shouting at you, you are going to react and start screaming and shouting at me, because we tend to reciprocate the behavior of the other party. So if you want the other person to be nice to you, then be nice to that person first. Okay. Likely the person will reciprocate and be nice back to you. Okay. So emotions are contagious. Now, understand emotional triggers, the words that you use, the phrases that you use. Let me show you this table. Okay. Labeling the other person negatively. For example, don't be stupid. You're lying. Okay. Words like this are very hurtful. Okay. You can definitely get a reaction, a very negative reaction from the other person, calling that person stupid. Wow. All right. Telling the other person what they can do. You better do this. You better do that. You better give me a good deal. Okay. Appealing to a higher source. I don't think you understand from a legal standpoint, etc. Okay. Rude, not listening, labeling your own behavior as superior. I know what I'm doing. All right. Or threatening the other person. We are going to ruin your reputation. So these are words and phrases. Okay. That is going to have a negative impact, because the other person, the recipient of such words and phrases, are going to react negatively. Okay, so be very mindful. Sometimes you are frustrated in a negotiation, you may be angry, you may deliberately want to say hurtful words. Okay, but think again. Okay, what are the consequences if you say out all these words? Okay, some of the words you say out already, there's no way you can take it back, because the other person will be offended by what you say. Okay, and they are going to react negatively. All right. And moving on to the last part of this topic, types of nonverbal cues. There are 12 of them. We're going to look at them in greater detail. Now, physical appearance. This is the first image that a person forms when they see you. Okay. So in business, we call it impression management, your physical appearance. Okay. Your looks, the shape of your body, your height, your hairstyle, your dress, your shoes, your personal grooming. People will start to form a judgment of you the moment they see you. This is what we call impression management. Okay. Now, the next one, paralinguistic. It is not about the language itself, okay, but it is all the other issues related to the verbal communication. So, for example, the speed of your speech, how fast are you speaking? Is there any pause, intentional and unintentional period of silence? How loud or how soft is your voice? How high or how low is your voice? Is there any pattern in a person's pitch? So, for example, you're reading a storybook to a child. So naturally, you tend to exaggerate a little bit, okay? So you sometimes put on a higher pitch, sometimes you put on a lower pitch, etc., to get the child's attention. All right. So you moderate your voice accordingly. The quality of your voice, any unique characteristics in the voice, articulation, how clear is the pronunciation? Okay, how clear articulation when you form those words as you speak. Okay, paralinguistic. The third one, body movement. Okay, so when you wave your hand, okay, it means goodbye. When you put the thumbs up, it means okay. When you lean forward, it shows interest. When you lean backwards, it shows disinterest. Okay, gesture. Okay, when you nod your head, posture, the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you stand, the way you sit. Facial expression. So there's 5 universal facial expression. They are happiness, sadness, anger, fear, as well as surprise. So regardless of culture, people are able to identify these 5 universal facial expression, regardless of your culture, regardless of your gender, regardless of your age group. People are able to recognize these 5 facial expression. Okay, eye contact speaks a lot. Okay, your eyes. Okay, direct eye contact shows your confidence. When you look downwards, it can mean that you're guilty of something, okay, or you're ashamed of something, or it can also means that you are listening carefully to something and you are processing the information in your mind. Single eyebrow raise, okay, means you're doubtful, you're skeptical about something. Both eyebrow raise, admiring or encouraging. Bent eyebrow, you're focused, you're intense in thinking about something. Tears in the eyes, it can be joy, it can be sadness. Now, haptics is all about touch, okay? Holding hands, hugging, kissing somebody. It is to show affection, to show support, as well as to show encouragement. However, be very mindful about haptics because not everybody appreciate your touch, okay? Especially when you touch somebody of a different gender. For example, a guy touching a female. Okay, not everybody appreciate your touch. You may think that, oh, it is a form of encouragement, it is a form of affection or support, but the other person may interpret as sexual harassment. Okay, so be very mindful, especially if the recipient of your touch is somebody who is more conservative. All right, they may not appreciate your touch, and they may interpret your intention wrongly. Now, the next one, proximates. That means a distance between you and the other person. Intimate distance, for example, close friends, close family members. It is a private zone between you and that person. You are very close to them. Personal distance, the distance between you and your friends or your acquaintance. Social distance, the distance between you and a stranger. Public distance, the distance between the audience and the speaker. Okay, so there are different level of distance. It depends on how close you are with them. And chronomates. Chronomates means the role of time in communication. Okay, time is another important criteria. How you value time, how you react to time. For example, being punctual for your classes. Okay, willingness to wait. Now, when you go for a job interview, okay, you're expected to arrive early and wait for your turn to be interviewed, and you are willing to wait because you want the job, okay, and you are willing to wait. You want to leave down a good impression by being punctual for your interview. Now, it can also be used as an indicator of status. For example, low status employees arrive at meeting before the boss. Okay, the boss can call for a meeting, cancel a meeting, reschedule a meeting at a short notice, whereas low status employees do not have the luxury to do that. If you want to meet your boss to discuss about an issue, you probably have to make an appointment. All right. So it is an indicator of a person's status. If a person has higher status, okay, they are allowed to come late. They are allowed to be the VIP. They are allowed to, cancel meeting, rearrange meeting, reschedule meeting, etc. But if you are a low status employee, you don't have the luxury to do that. Now, the next nonverbal cue is artifacts. Artifacts are the physical object of a person. The type of clothing that you're wearing, the brand of the shoes, the brand of your car, if there is any tattoos or any body piercing. Okay, so it can be used to represent a person's personality based on your body piercing, the numerous tattoos that you have on your body. It can also be used to reflect a person's social economic conditions. Okay, the car or the brand of the car that you're driving, the brand of all your clothing and your shoes, etc. That is artifacts. And finally, environment. Okay, the environment can convey both positive and negative messages, whether the negotiation is done indoor or outdoor, whether it is in a bright or dark colored room, or whether it's in a clean or dirty room. So in this lecture theatre, you can see that it is very conducive for studying. We are able to dim the light when necessary. There is air conditioning. It's very comfortable, tables and chairs. We have, all these equipments in this lecture theatre. So it is a conducive environment, okay, for you to study. So similarly, in a negotiation, okay, you want to create a conducive environment for negotiation to take place. All right, so these are the 12 non-verbal cues. Now, I know that this is a lot of theory in session 4. We're going to end this session. I'm going to end this meeting. So I'm going to log out and I'm going to come back in for session 5. Okay, so please take a few minutes of break and we will come back to do session 5 in a few minutes. Thank you.